Okay, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guest colleagues, Minister Atchison, and fellow rail enthusiasts. I'm pretty honoured to stand here today as President of the PWI Institution in New South Wales, representing an industry association that's been supporting the rail industry for over 50 years. This is our 49th annual convention. It's a testament to our commitment to advancing railways and celebrating the resilience and expertise of our industry. It's also a great opportunity for us to support our regional colleagues, and that's why we're hosting our annual convention up here in Orange today. I'll just run through a few safety announcements before we get started. There's no safety drills planned today, so if you do hear the emergency evacuation sounds, the beep beep and whoop whoops, then that means that we do have an emergency. We need to move to the exit signs, follow the directions of the club marshals and move out to our marshalling points. So, as I said, nothing planned for today. Just a reminder that Orange Ex-Services Club is strictly a non-smoking club. First aiders are on duty, and I just remind people for later on today that if they're on duty and they're a rail safety worker, that they've got certain obligations under the National Rail Safety legislation, and obviously the PWI supports a sensible and responsible service of alcohol. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land of which we meet today, the Wiradjuri people from the Wiradjuri Nation, and recognise their continued connection to the land, water and community, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So the theme for this year's convention is Back to Basics 2. It underscores the importance of our regional rail network and the extraordinary knowledge and skills and experiences that define our industry. I want to extend a gratitude to our partners and supporters, including New South Wales Trainlink, Sydney Trains, Transport for New South Wales and UGL Regional Link, as well as ARTC and our corporate members for their unwavering support of helping to make this event possible. So let's begin with a bit of a journey back in time. The Blue Mountains, located to the west of Sydney, presented a natural barrier to the early European settlers due to the rugged terrain and dense forests to the west of Sydney. It wasn't until the early 19th century that explorers and surveyors began to search for a viable route through the Blue Mountains. In 1813, Blaxland, Lawson and Wentworth, who we all know, successfully crossed the Blue Mountains and opened up that western hinterland for exploration and settlement. As the settlement of the western regions of New South Wales expanded, it also grew the efficiency of transportation links for Sydney. So in the mid-19th century, various proposals were put forward to build a railway line across the Blue Mountains to connect the inland towns of Bathurst and Orange. Construction of the railway line over the Blue Mountains began in the 1860s as part of the main Western Line upgrades and the connection to Bathurst and beyond. The line reached Bathurst in 1876, significantly improving transportation for people and goods from the western regions. The railway line was then extended from Bathurst to Orange in the 1880s and further facilitated this economic development and transportation for the area. The extension out to Orange became a really significant part of the regional culture and became a centre for both agriculture, trade and industry. Throughout the 20th century, the railway line underwent various upgrades, modernisations to improve the efficiency and capability and capacity of the line. Further developments of rail infrastructure in the regions played a critical role in transportation of agricultural products, minerals and other goods to and from central west of New South Wales. In the later half of the 20th century, the railway industry in Australia experienced a fairly decent decline, particularly in passenger services and freight transportation by rail as we shifted more towards road transport. This led to a number of changes to regional rail networks, including the closure of a number of lines or reduced capacity. However, over the years, Orange and the surrounding areas have now witnessed a significant development in railway infrastructure. Major projects, expansions and innovations have transformed the area into a hub of railway-related industries. These developments have not only improved transportation, but also provided countless economic advantages to the local community. Indeed, there are many examples of towns across New South Wales that have either been founded or thrived on becoming a railway town. If we look at Werris Creek, Nyngan, Bowral, Goulburn, Tenterfield are just a few examples. If you look at Werris Creek particularly, it came into existence when 500 railway workers settled in the area in 1877 to build the line from Murrurundi to Tamworth, and then later continued that to the branch line out to Gunnedah. As a result, Werris Creek, a very proud and historic railway town, with street signs shaped like railway signals, huge and elegant railway stations, and an important museum. There's a monument for workers who lost their lives on the railways, and a collection of statues celebrating railway workers. This is just an example of how railways transformed many parts of regional New South Wales. In recent times, it's worth noting that the management of the Country Rail Network, or CRN as we call it, a critical component of our state's rail system, has transformed, or sort of transitioned to UGL, working in close with the New South Wales government. Furthermore, the decision to headquarters the CRN in Orange reflects the city's strategic importance as a central hub for railway operations in regional New South Wales. This move underscores the commitment of both public and private entities to invest and support in railways in the region. So we look beyond Orange, you recognise a significant amount of infrastructure that is actually going on in the area. Regional New South Wales has got a resurgence in rail projects, driven by the recognition that it plays a pivotal part in our economy. The construction and new upgrades, particularly of the inland rail, with new intermodal hubs in Parkes, located in Central West, known as the Inland Rail Hub, and other possible intermodals that are proposed at Narrabri, Dubbo, Narromine and Moree. The new train stabling facility at Dubbo for the intercity fleet, or the NIF trains as we call them, is a noteworthy investment and the growth and opportunities for regional New South Wales and rail industry. These products encompass track expansions, modernisation efforts, and the implementation of cutting-edge technologies to enhance efficiency, safety and sustainability, as well as improving the regional transportation services. These are essential for connecting the regions, facilitating trade, and ensuring the continued growth of our communities. Orange, a city known for its vibrant and stunning landscapes, also plays a critical role in the growth of this rail network. As we gather here today in Orange, a place rich in railway history, a bright future, let us reaffirm our dedication to the railway industry and the pivotal role that it plays with our society. Together, your PWI will continue to share knowledge, foster valuable networks, and to contribute to the growth and diversity of the industry. In conclusion, I'd like to emphasise the indispensable role that a strong and viable rail network plays in the economy of New South Wales and Australia as a whole. Our railways have been instrumental in the past, continue to shape our present, and hold a key to a prosperous future. The railway industry is not only about track, overhead wiring, signalling systems and trains, it's about connecting people, fostering economic and social development and driving progress. So let us as leaders and stakeholders in the rail industry continue to work together to ensure that our railways remain at the forefront of innovation and development. By doing so, we can look forward to a future where our railways contribute even more significantly to the growth and prosperity not only of regional New South Wales, but our great nation. I'd also like to acknowledge that we have today here a number of students from the Faculty of Civil Engineering from Charles Sturt University in Bathurst. Those guys and girls have got a blue dot on their badge, so please take the time to have a chat to them. They're our future leaders, so we want to encourage them to get into the rail industry. So this is their first conference, so I hope you enjoy it. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for this morning. We're honoured to be joined here this morning by the Honourable Jenny Atchison, who is the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads. Jenny was appointed to the role in April 2023 with the establishment of the new Minns Labor government. Jenny has served in shadow cabinet since 2016 and as a shadow minister for regional transport since 2021. Prior to that, Jenny held diverse portfolios including primary industries, investment and tourism, medical research, prevention of domestic violence and sexual assault, small business and women. Jenny lives in regional New South Wales, or has lived in regional New South Wales for over 25 years, initially in the New England Tablelands and now in Maitland. Jenny was elected to represent her community in Maitland in 2015. Jenny's an award-winning coach tour operator, and she's been operating, or was operating coaches for nearly 20 years before entering Parliament. She's a strong advocate for public transport, served on both state and federal committees representing to conferences, particularly on the Bus New South Wales and Bus Industry Confederation, on issues such as resilience, environment, critical incidents and safety management, looking at disability access, increasing patronage, tourism and economic development, and also the transition of the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator. Jenny's also a strong supporter of regional rail in New South Wales and knows the vital role it plays in our regional economy of New South Wales and the importance of level crossing safety. Jenny looks forward to continuing to work with remote and rural stakeholders to deliver strategic, integrated regional transport plans across New South Wales. So would you join with me in welcoming Jenny to the stage to present our keynote address for what should be a productive and enlightening convention. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark, for that introduction, and thanks everyone for the invitation to be here today. And I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we're on today and acknowledge their ongoing custodianship of country, and I pay my respects to any Aboriginal people who are here today. We know tomorrow is a very big day for our nation, and so it has been a hard few months, I think, particularly for our Aboriginal brothers and sisters. I was really thinking about this earlier this week when we had a meeting, an enforced undertaking meeting with Transport for New South Wales and councils from across the state involved in delivering Transport for New South Wales projects in the regions. And we had a beautiful welcome to country from Brother Tom, a Gamilargal man in the Eora Nation in the Sydney Basin, and he talked about the songlines that are on our land, that are part of the land, that are part of Aboriginal people's experience and knowledge and understanding. And then looking up this institution, coming to speak to the Permanent Way, which has been in my diary for months now, and every time I look at it and think, I've got to look up what they do and exactly. And then I looked at it and a couple of days ago, and I went, yeah, that's actually really cool, because it is that whole similar idea of the Permanent Way describing the course of the railway line, including all the components that make up the track, but it is around that permanent way. And when you think about how rail made such an enormous impact when it was first introduced, and the fact that your organisation, although it's 50 years here, comes back from 1884 in the UK with William Meredith Lewis, and he had that presidency for so long, till 1922, right? So you're talking about an institution which is founded on wayfinding and having a sense of permanency and of the opportunity and the importance of connection of people with land and each other across time. And I just was thinking about that, and it, to me, really speaks to me about what this portfolio of regional transport and roads is about. Because one of the things I love about my role is, if you're in the city, there's a light rail past your door every 5 seconds, or a car or a bus or whatever. But when you're out in a region and live in a town like I did for some time, 1,600 people, transport is a lot of your life. It's a social determinant of health, education, opportunity and jobs, as things Mark referred to in his presentation. People don't get healthcare if they can't get to healthcare, if they can't get to a hospital, if they can't get to a health service. They don't take up that job. They don't give themselves further education if they can't access a university or TAFE. So what our railways have done for so long is been really the first mass transit system that enabled people to thrive and to progress and to make much better of themselves. So it's a really important legacy that you have. And I particularly love the idea of the technical institution as somewhere where you pass on technical knowledge, advice and support to everyone engaged in the rail infrastructure system. And if we go back to hear from our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, that's what that whole system of their knowledge and elders and understanding Dreamtime is about, passing on knowledge, not just the technical expertise you might learn at uni or TAFE or wherever, but it's the knowledge that you gain living and doing the work rather than just being taught how to do it and off you go and we'll see you later when you build that track. So I think this is a really important place to be. Now, as Mark mentioned, I've been a tour operator for many years before I entered Parliament. We sold our business when I got into shadow cabinet because even though no decision making, I'm a really straighty 180. I don't like any conflicts. So that's been something I'm really strong on. But it was such an enormous honour and privilege to work in that industry. And even though we were talking about buses a lot of the time, people like David Hensher, Janet Stanley from Melbourne, they were talking to us at conferences all the time about the importance of rail, the importance of integrated transport, the importance of understanding the opportunities. And I remember particularly after the GFC, there was some research they were doing about how there was a real correlation between people's success and resilience in the GFC, the closer they actually lived to a heavy rail station, because they could get out to get to the job or get out to get the education that they needed. And from a bus industry perspective, we were saying, well, we know we can't just build a new rail line to every suburb and, in Western Sydney and every town in regional New South Wales. How do we start looking at things like bus rapid transit to engage with that? And then how do we do that intermodal shift and make sure that we don't lose patronage, because we know that that happens when we tell people you've got to get off a train and get onto a bus. So there's a lot of challenges in that. I have a bit of experience with opening rail lines from the private sector. When we had our motel in Walker, we had bus tours, and we actually got the Armidale railway reopened because we used to go and pick up passengers because we were in the CountryLink Explorer book back in the day, and probably some of your parents went on trips with us back then. And then eventually we actually got Walker Road Station opened. So I really understand that the difficulties in trying to get that to happen, but also the economic benefits that can flow, not just to individuals like it was good for our business. We didn't have to drive down to Tamworth to get people anymore, but we suddenly enabled people to go to places they hadn't been able to go before. So it's a very compelling case. And I guess I'm not, deaf to the irony of we're in Orange and there's a really strong push from Orange City Council to get their community included on the Bathurst Bullet line and in those services. And sorry, I feel like I'm being a bit self-indulgent here, but I think it's sort of good when it's the first time you're talking to a group of people to sort of tell them where you're coming from and what the lens is for you. And the other thing is, having come from Maitland, my predecessor quite some time ago was the Honourable Milton Morris, who's now sadly passed away, but he was a very strong advocate for rail, state's longest transport minister, not from my party, but a very dear friend and mentor to me. And, his just, I guess, embracing of the opportunities of transport and his absolute dedication to safety is something that I think about every day in this role, and I really want to embrace and push forward, I guess. So that's probably about me, so you can switch on now to the real stories. But I'm so excited to be here and to open this conference because the theme of the convention being Back to Basics 2.0, I really love that. I love your artwork, but I really love the message. Some of the key themes that we've adopted in the first 6 months of our government, particularly from this transport perspective, has been restoring reliability and increasing patronage on the network. Now, we know that's sometimes really hard. You might have a bus operator in a country town who's going to increase your numbers. You might have a failure of a bridge in Taro right near your electorate, which, increased train patronage in the Hunter at the moment. I think we're up 15 to 20% in a couple of days. That's something, not the right reason, but we need to start giving those people a compelling reason to say, why don't you think about this as an everyday option rather than an emergency one. Respecting and re-engaging our workforce, and that's something that I think is so important. As someone, again, who owned a business, who understood that the people who are delivering the services to the customers, the people like yourselves who are building the infrastructure and can see on the ground what's happening, you are the most important person in our whole organisation, if you think about it like that. You are the person who sees what's going wrong, and when we work with respect and engagement, we start to have an invitation around safety of being able to say, we want this to improve and we want to hear how you can do it. We want to hear how you can increase and improve patronage. You will know how to do those sorts of things. City shaping and precinct making. We know that post-COVID there's been a massive migration of people around. There's been a massive change in the way people work. The transport task is extremely different from what it was even 4 years ago, because we've got more people working from home. They don't want maybe the same peak services they wanted back then, but that when they do want to travel, they want it to be seamless. And we've got this whole generation of people who've come out to the country and they have an expectation there could be a thing called public transport here. And we have a really once in a generation, in fact, I'd probably say a once in a century opportunity to invite them to keep that pressure on us, that obligation on us as government to provide some better services. And I know the former government was doing this with the 16 cities rollout. We're still continuing that, and there's some real improvements just even in the bus services, but I think there's a lot more to do in the rail as well. Integrated public transport systems, we want to have that focus as well, and increasing our focus on local manufacturing and jobs, because we know, when we look at some of the transport projects, and I'll talk about one in particular a bit later, that's been a real bugbear of not having that local procurement capacity and manufacturing capacity here. And so we haven't been able to perhaps guide our own path on some of these journeys, which is more expensive, we know, in the long run, and limits our choices and opportunities. So I guess that's some of those priorities. But for me, I think the other thing is we need to stop thinking about rail over here and roads over here and freight over there and passengers over there, because really we just need to be a little bit mode agnostic and we need to bring it together, because we know that, one of the things I'm really passionate about, level crossings, for example, that is the real interface. So there's a huge safety reason, but even that integration of our networks and understanding, do we have a freight strategy, for example, which is determined by government on the most efficient way to move freight from the producer or the manufacturer to the market? Or is it that the producer or manufacturer is finding the cheapest way or the most timely way for them, but we're not hearing how it could be improved? And so we have lots of trucks on the road when we could have more rail on the tracks, and that would improve some of our safety, statistics, I guess, which are fatalities and terrible on our road network if we could get more things onto the rail. So we have to think about it in a more holistic view. And to its credit, the former government, with the establishment of Transport for New South Wales, started that conversation, but I think there is so much more work to do, which is just really a function of a 25,000 people organisation. we just need to really be locked in. And I'm a real believer in Velcro relationships, people connecting at all levels of the organisation, so that if there's a weakness in a relationship at one level, the other levels can back up and we just get a much stronger, more collaborative approach. I also want to think about, I guess, how those things that I've mentioned, the restoring reliability and the city shaping and precinct go in. We know that people, for example, on the restoring reliability and patronage, we know it's clear that more people are choosing public transport. It's not just in Sydney, it's also happening in regional passenger services. But we have to ensure that we're getting those timetables right. We know that the systems need to be right. We know that the maintenance needs to be right. And that's something that we have to really focus on. I remember coming to government and, there was a bit of a conversation around these are all the media opportunities. And I went, okay, put that to the side. What's actually happening here? What do we need to fix? Where are the problems? And we really want to lean in to the problems. And I think you've seen that with Minister Haylen in the rail network, and we're so far ahead of where we thought we would be in catching up on some of that backlog. We've done it in the regional road space with the budget, giving councils money to actually fix those, and we know that there's more to do in the regional rail as well. The integrated transport system I want to talk about as well. We want to have better fare structures. I mean, it beggars belief that half of the state, or over half the state, everyone outside that little Opal network around Sydney, they're still paying cash on our buses. Like now, Opal was introduced 12 years ago. So there's a lot of urgency to do that, because we know once we start making those decisions, we make it easier for people to plan their trips. We can get better tracking on our services, and that's important as well. And then ensuring that that then flows across into our rail network. I guess our priorities for the railway network, if we talk about regional rail, our train link services are so important. It's a vital role providing access and equity, really, and breaching that tyranny of distance. Now, we have 160 regional rail services across New South Wales every week to Melbourne, Canberra, Brisbane, and internally. And we know that that popularity is growing again, and we know that the customer satisfaction is quite high. But there are still limitations with our current fleet. It is very disturbing when you come to government and you've got a project that's 4 years overdue and like over $1 billion cost overrun. So obviously we're replacing that ageing regional rail fleet of the XPTs, the Explorers and Endeavours with the new regional rail fleet. And that production, I think it's important to give you an update. It's underway. The new 29 trains will have 117 new carriages. There'll be 10 regional intercity and 9 regional and 10 long regional trains, and we're doing a lot of work around how that works. There's some changes in terms of how that rolling stock works, but there are some better accessible features within them. We know that, again, if we're talking about integrated transport, having public transport, we talked about this last night at dinner, if I have one more person with a bike that says I can't get on a regional train unless I box my bike, and I can't do that if it's an electric bike because it's over 20 kilograms and the battery's too heavy. We have to do better on that. So we're looking at everything we can do. There will be some improvements with the new fleet. Again, not as far as we'd like to go, but we just need to get them out here and get them going. We're also looking at the XPTs and how we go through with that and what happens. We know there's some opportunities there to refurbish some of those to provide more flexibility in the fleet. And of course, as Mark mentioned, the new maintenance centre, Mindiara, a Wiradjuri word meaning to fix or repair, and that will be the work it's done. So the other important part of that is the regional workforce that will come into play there. We've got some real opportunities. I've been out there a couple of times and spoken to some of the workers, women, people, Aboriginal people, people under 25 years of age. It gives us a whole new kind of generation coming in here, because I know sometimes it's hard to get people into the transport space because, except if you're sort of a bit like me, it's not it's not something you go into as a younger person at times. So we want to get that to happen. We've had some really good success with that 85% completion rate by Aboriginal participants in the pre-employment programs. More than 400 workers involved in the construction of that and the jobs that have been there. And we also have been having a real focus on local businesses in there, working on that as well. We also have the Country Rail Network, or Country Regional Network, and that's not just about investment, as I said, in the new infrastructure, it's that back to basics of renewed focus on looking after and improving the network we've already got in place. The primary role of that network is to ensure that the management of the assets provides a safe, reliable and sustainable rail network and supporting operational services. And, we know that there are some, unacceptable delays on our services because of the state of that network, and that is something that I'm working really hard to address. We also have such a big task in front of us. We've got 2,500 kilometres of operational rail lines, and someone was talking to me this morning, it's like half the size of the UK area in the regions. That's huge. As everyone in this room knows, we need that freight connectivity with the ports. We need to ensure that there is, again, a holistic view of, paddock or plant to port in the way that we manage our freight so that it is efficient. We know that moving freight is a $66 billion annual contribution to our economy, which is 13% of the gross state product. And while 2/3 of that freight's going through Sydney, 1/3 of it is going through the regions. And we know there's going to be a massive increase by 2036. It will be up by 48%, according to our latest Freight and Ports plan. The network was designed and constructed over a century ago. I mean, it's the beauty and the challenge of rail, right? It's a beautiful heritage and legacy, but gosh, it's got to work for the 21st century and beyond. So modern freight requiring those heavier volumes, the higher axle loads, the longer train configurations, and we have to rise to that challenge. And just as we have, creep on the road network, we have creep on the rail network of everything's got to be bigger. I mean, we've got so many challenges in the sense in regional New South Wales. It's not just that post-COVID migration, it's the reses, that suddenly we're moving massive pieces of equipment all over into regional New South Wales on roads that were never designed for that. So we have to look at every opportunity, and rail has to be a part of that conversation. Fixing Country Rail is still going ahead. I know that my colleagues across the other side of the aisle came out with a budget and they didn't have much to talk about. So some of them have forgotten, I think, how to read budget papers. So if they don't see something in there, they think it's been chopped. But fake news, Fixing Country Rail is still there. We're still spending. And we want to know that from you, I guess, what are the challenges you see? I'm really I can't make this invitation clear enough. I want to hear from you about the challenges you're seeing in your work, about where we could be doing more to improve the efficiency and the capability of our freight network across New South Wales. We've had, quite a number of different investments in recent years. The Junee to Griffith line upgrade, which was in January 22 commissioned. That's the $60 million project, replacement of 174 kilometres of rail. Like, these are huge numbers. And that increased the tonne axle limit to 25 tonnes. So that enabled those heavier trains. We had the Berry to Bomaderry rail line, so the $40 million Berry to Bomaderry upgrade. And then we've got the Riverina Intermodal Freight and Logistics Hub, which started in November 22. The other thing we've got, of course, is the Main West rail line. It's a key transport route for freight as well as passengers to and from Sydney to Western New South Wales. Terminates in Nyngan. Significant sections of that line have been impacted by recent extreme weather events, and that's something that across our networks, road and rail, we are really dealing with all the time. The capacity enhancement program was established back in 2017, but we are still working on this again. We've included in this last budget $127 million to develop projects on that line to upgrade and improve the passenger and freight rail services to support that economic growth in regional New South Wales. And of course, we have inland rail, and that's, the connectivity, the interface, they are things we're working on as well with the federal government. And I guess part of it now is, as a government, my I guess, push on that is it just can't be about the feds want to put a rail line through New South Wales and we'll just let them get on with it. We have to see some benefits for New South Wales out of that, and we have to work with our local communities so that it's not just going through us, but that we can actually harness properly the opportunities that are there from that. And I know there's been some work done on that, but I think there's more to do from New South Wales and having that discussion. So I think that's probably all I should really go to. I think I've probably gone over time now. There are all of these challenges, and I guess that's the thing. I am someone who's very practical. I want to see change. I want to see improvement in rail. It's not just all about roads. You'll hear me talk about that a lot because there's a lot of people out there struggling with the disasters that we've experienced over the last few years and what that's meant to their everyday commute and how they're getting around. But we know that that importance of rail as something that can provide the permanent way, the permanent solution for how we improve freight, how we improve passenger transport across our whole network, rail and roads, working together, I think is really important. So I invite you to, reach out to my office at any time. We really do want to hear from people. One of the things, I guess, coming to government, ministerial correspondence is one of those things that becomes like a bit of a tennis match. You write, you serve, we serve back, and we just see what happens at the end of it. I've kind of suggested to Transport, I want like a bit of a suggestion box. So when someone comes up with a good idea, we don't say, we don't have any plans to do that anymore, thanks very much. That we actually say, what is this? Let's get it to the policy area. Let's get that idea germinating amongst the public servants, because that's the other thing I have to say to you. The public servants in Transport for New South Wales, the passion and the drive that they have to improve our transport network is just incredible. Coming back into the transport portfolio of work, having worked in it as a private operator and then having sort of a few years off in opposition, has been just probably the biggest honour and privilege of my life to be back in it. And every day I come to work, my brain is firing with the ways we can make things better, right? And that's the passion that I bring to this role. And we're not going to get everything all at once. That was 2019, and Gladys was, you can have it all at once and you can have it right now and we'll just put it on the tick. But what we're saying is, instead of just looking at, we've got this much money and we've just got to try and make everything work into it, let's look at what perfect transport looks like. And then every step, every investment, every plan we make moves us closer to that perfect transport, because that's what progress is and that's what we want to achieve in transport. So congratulations on all the work that you do. Thank you so much for inviting me to open your conference, and I wish you the best over the next couple of days, and I'll be around for some of the day. I'm not flying back till this afternoon, so I hope to catch up with you along the way. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your keynote, Jenny. Got to admit, I'm pretty impressed with your knowledge of the rail and the rail industry, particularly since you're new to a portfolio. So thank you for that. And Jenny's also thrown out to, we've got a lot of smart people in this room. There's a challenge, provide the Minister with some information and some innovations of what we can do better. So as Jenny said, she is around today. Appreciate how approachable you have been and how easily it's been to work with you to get you to come along today. So thank you for that. And you're right, we are a really passionate group. We've been doing these conventions for 49 years now. I can't see it changing anytime soon. And we really want to be able to provide that knowledge back to people and encourage people to come into our industry. It's an exciting industry, certainly changing very much from what it was 100 years ago, to particularly as we move more into a digital space, which brings very different people into our industry. So you're right, we are passionate, and I just want to thank you again for joining us this morning, and would you all join with me in just giving Jenny another round of appreciation?